Oh, there we go. What up, brothers? Welcome back to Throwing Hands. Uh, Joined by Daniel Woods per usual on a very, very good fight card. What were your thoughts on this night on Saturday?
Dude, this Saturday, a ton of finishes. Obviously, we're going to get into it, but Joaquin Buckley with one of the knockouts of the year. You look at the main event, Corey Sandhagen is really emerging into what we expected him to be coming up as a prospect. I'm so excited for really everybody moving forward from this fight card because the guys that picked up wins on Saturday look very, very impressive.
All right. Well, let's get into Impic Sanganai versus Joaquin Buckley, two very promising prospects. Impic Sanganai coming out the contender series just 2 months ago and 6 weeks removed from his first UFC win. And Joaquin Buckley, he came in on short notice against Kevin Holland, but Dana White saw something in him and signed him again. And whew, that spinning back kick after getting his leg caught by Impic Sanganai, Joaquin Buckley, just really he's good. I think he's gained like 60,000 Instagram followers or something like that. And yes, that knockout was impressive, but he showed some other things. He showed he can get up into the pocket, make it dirty, and get out clean. Especially against the guy against Impic Sanganai, who likes to do a fairly similar thing. What were your thoughts on this fight?
I thought Joaquin Buckley showed exactly what he can be in the UFC, and that's an extremely athletic guy with a lot of power behind his hands and his feet. And I think that was perfectly displayed in the knockout as well. He used that just raw athleticism to kind of get turned around on Impa Kasanganay, throw that spinning heel kick, and it was the power that put him down. Kasanganay, I don't think really know what hit him and ended up stumbling backwards, nearly stayed up on his feet, which would have been extremely impressive, but finally just ended up flat on his back without a chance. I was really impressed with Joaquin Buckley on Saturday. I was impressed with him in that fight against Kevin Holland because I love Kevin Holland, and Buckley was able to stay with him for quite a while. Stepping into this one, I think he looked great. I think he's somebody to keep an eye on going forward, as is Impic Sagane, but it's certainly going to be Joaquin Buckley that makes the headlines coming out of this Saturday.
For sure. And uh, I I don't know what's next for these guys. These are two very young prospects. They'll probably get another prospect before going up in competition. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on the what's next for these two guys?
Yeah, I'm not sure where to go with either of these guys yet. I think Joaquin Buckley, still pretty young, still pretty raw, is somebody that the UFC is going to want to bring along rather slowly. Other than that, same thing with Impic Sangane, honestly. These are, as I said, and as you said, two really big prospects, two prospects with a ton of potential to move forward in the UFC to make things happen in the next couple years. I don't think they're going to want to push either of these guys too hard, particularly Kasangade coming off of a loss and Buckley being as raw as he is. I don't think we're going to see a huge jump for him yet. I would see both of them probably getting some veterans outside the top 15.
Definitely. All right, to the next fight of the night: Chris Dock versus Rodrigo Nacimiento Ferreira. Chris Dawkins, I'm big on Chris Dawkins. This guy is a heavyweight with hands that are as fast as a flyweight, and that's why he got this win. I don't all the strikes were significant, and they're heavy and quick. I don't know what else to say about Chris Dawkins. I'm high on this guy, and I honestly would give him someone toward the bottom of the top 15 with the way he's been performing lately. What are your
Yeah,
thoughts?
I agree. I'm a big Chris Christakis fan, especially coming out of Saturday. I liked him before, and I was continuing to be impressed with the way he fought on Saturday. Like you said, extremely quick hands. That's the thing that jumps off the page for him in terms of his fighting style. And I just love the fact that he is aggressive and he uses those hands so well. I think moving forward, we're going to see him have some opportunities. We're going to see him have some chances to make some things happen. And I think, like you said, I would like to see him get somebody towards the bottom of the top 15. I think that would be very beneficial for his career moving forward. Potentially get him into that top 15 because he's looked so good to start off. And he came into this as an underdog. He was a plus 220 underdog in this fight, and he knocked Rodrigo Nascimento Ferreira out in the first 45 seconds.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of potential going on the Chris Dawkins side, but onto the featured prelim of the night, Tom Breeze versus KB Bular. Tom Breeze, I think this guy has a lot of potential. He has heavy hands. Hit him with that nice straight jab and just put him to the ground. If you put a guy to the ground with a straight jab, you definitely have heavy hands. It did not even look that hard. So I'm intrigued to see what Tom Breeze does in the future. What were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, Tom Brees will mess you up, and that's what happened to KB Bhullar, who's not a bad prospect in his own right, one of the better Canadian prospects coming out right now, as Ariel Helwani was talking about on Saturday. But Tom Brees will mess you up, and like you said, putting a guy down with a straight jab is ridiculously impressive. His ability to do that on Saturday was really, really fun to watch and really, really brutal to watch. But I like what this guy is able to do. He's already in a featured prelim at this point. I would love to see him keep continuing up the card.
For sure. All right, to the first event of the main card. The first guest on Throwing Hands, Yusuf Salah going up against Ilya Topuria. Ilya Topuria, man, I was impressed. He came in on 10 days short notice against Yusuf, who's one of the top prospects in the UFC right now, and just took him to the ground and kept him there. I mean, Yusuf Salah got out of I don't know how many 5 submission attempts that looked pretty cinched in. So he's not a white belt like Topuria said, but Yusuf Salah's performance really puzzled me. It seemed like he wanted to go to the ground sometimes against a guy who's very well versed on the ground. He didn't want to keep his distance, pick his shots like the Thai boxer he is. What were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this was a little bit of a weird fight to watch. Taporia, like you said, came in, completely controlled things to the ground. 5 takedowns in this fight for Ilya Taporia, and that was the difference maker because he was outstruck by Yusuf Zalal, and that's something you come to expect from Yusuf Zalal because he strikes so quickly, he strikes with such efficiency, and he keeps guys at a distance. But Taporia was able to get inside, grab those takedowns, and I don't think Yusuf Zalal really knew how to react to that. I think he ended up kind of fighting Taporia's fight, and you never want to do that, particularly against a wrestler. So Zalal just, I think, got caught in a bad position. I think there were flashes where he still looked good. I still think he's an outstanding prospect here. We're talking about a guy, he lost because he got taken down 5 times. But as I said, he still outstruck Taporia by 4 in terms of significant strikes and by 10 in terms of total strikes. And he landed with the same kind of efficiency. So did Yusuf Zalal take a loss here? Yes. Is it a huge setback for him? I would say no. I think this is more of a step forward for Ilya Taporia than it is a step back for Yusuf Zalal.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I think this might be one of the best things to happen to Yusuf Salal in the long run. I think he went up against a very good grappler, and he realized, hey, I probably after this fight, I need to choose my fights more wisely, where they go and stuff like that. So I think in the long run, this probably benefited Yusuf Zalal. And I think Yusuf Zalal didn't take too much damage, so we could probably see him fight for a 5th time by the end of the year. What do you think?
I would think so. Yusuf Zalal is a guy that when we talk to him and what we've seen in the UFC, seems like the type that he's just going to want to fight when he's given the opportunity. And I think we're going to see that again by the end of the year. Like we've said, he's a hot prospect. He's the type of guy that's motivated to get back in the win column. I think we're going to see him try to do it by the end of the year.
Definitely. All right, to the next event of the big night for heavyweights. I mean, prospect-wise. So, Tom Aspinall versus Alan Baldo. Aspinall, man, I'm high on this guy personally. I think he's a lean heavyweight, and he'll just put you out. And he wasn't even impressed by his performance. He said, my coach told me what not to do, and I did some of it, but I got the win, so he couldn't complain. But I mean, Tom Aspinall, I'm high on this guy. What are your thoughts on?
Yeah, I agree. Tom Aspinall's got a ton of potential in the heavyweight division. 17-5 on total strikes, 16-3 significant, and then he landed a takedown as well. A minute 35 knockout. I mean, he came in as massive favorite, and he did everything you expect a massive favorite to do. Minus 650 for Tom Aspinall to win this fight. I mean, you almost have to put money on Alan Baudot coming into that just based on the odds themselves. But Tom Aspinall looked great, was dominant, did everything you expect out of a top prospect, and I would love to see what he's able to do going forward.
Yeah, I think in the past 2 fights, I mean, he hasn't had too many fights in the UFC, obviously. He's only had 2, that's correct. But I think with the way he's performing, I think you got to give him someone just right outside the top 15. No names come straight to my mind. But I don't know, maybe a Ben Rothwell, and we'll talk about that a little later. But I think that'd be a good matchup for Tom Aspinall. What are your thoughts?
I think so. I think we talked about Chris Daukaus earlier, and those are 2 prospects, but that would be a really interesting prospect fight. I'm not sure if they would want to match those 2 guys up and give one of those guys a loss this early in their UFC runs, but it would be interesting to take a look at. Aspinall is at a point where he is going to need a bigger challenge. Rothwell would be an interesting one. Anyone in that range, I think, would be an interesting one.
Definitely. So to the next middleweight bout of the night, Marcus Perez versus Dricus du Plessis. Du Plessis, South African fighter. There's not too many in the UFC, but he showed out. Marcus Perez dipped his head. Du Plessis had that left uppercut, I think, right to the temple, and put him to sleep pretty much. So I think I like Du Plessis a lot. I like his potential. He's a big middleweight too. He's ripped. I think, and he's very athletic. So I think he can be a big problem in this division. What are your thoughts?
I think so. This was another fight that was extremely exciting just because it was two guys going at each other, and Du Plessis was able to kind of take control early and handle it from there. But there were 40 strikes landed between these two guys, and all of them were significant. That's insane to talk about, even in a fight that was ended in just over 3 minutes. But Du Plessis comes out 26 significant strikes to 14, as I mentioned, against Marcus Perez. And he was efficient doing it. He was powerful doing it. And as you said, a big middleweight that can cause some problems for some guys. I think he's got some potential moving forward. I like what he did on Saturday, and I was very impressed coming away just with his ability to kind of stay on top of things, keep Marcus Perez on his heels.
Definitely. I think there's not much else to talk about. I think Du Plessis will still I think he'll get a high level prospect, but I don't see him doing too much outside of that just right now. But he'll be somewhere, I think. All right, to more big boys. Ben Rothwell versus Marcin Tybura. These guys were slinging some rubber. We're slinging some leather, rather. I think these guys. If this was in an arena, I think the crowd would be going nuts over these two heavyweights just slugging it out. It was entertaining to watch. What were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I think this was just two big lads going right at each other for 3 rounds. And Marcin Tybura came out on top. He outlanded Ben Rothwell by 60, but in terms of significant strikes, it was only by 5. So Rothwell threw a ton of strikes. He threw 287 strikes to Tybura's 274, but Tybura was a lot more efficient in doing it, 57% landing on total strikes and 51% landing on significant strikes, had a takedown in there as well. So Marcin Tybura looked very good in this fight. Ben Rothwell didn't necessarily look bad, but it was Tybura just filling this fight up with strikes and keeping the pressure up that I think allowed him to win.
Yeah, I think potential-wise for these guys, Tybura, I believe he was ranked before a certain point, but I think he was ranked at a certain point, and I think he's trying to get his career back on track. He took a little bit of a break, but I think we could see, Tybura, find himself in that top 15 if he gets strings together another win or two. What do you think?
Yeah, I would agree. I think Tybura isn't necessarily a guy that you're going to see in even top 10 contention, but he's certainly somebody that could find himself in the top 15, kind of bouncing around those ladder spots and being a guy that can test some heavyweights coming up and have an opportunity to have a very defined role in the UFC and be very important to the hierarchy of the heavyweight division.
Definitely. I think when it comes to Ben Rothwell, I think he and Andrei Arlovsky are kind of like the gatekeepers of this division at this point. Two old guys who can still throw their hands, compete, but he's old. He's not going to get. He says he wants to get back in that title contention. I don't see it happening. I don't think many reasonable fans see it happening. What do you think?
I disagree. I think Ben Rothwell – I disagree with Ben Rothwell's sentiment, not with you. I don't think he's in a position to get back into title contention. Like you said, him and Arlovsky are the gatekeepers. They're the guys that are going to be the tests for guys coming up, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So he's got a defined role. It's going to keep him on the roster. I just don't think he takes much of a step up from there.
Nope, he won't. So to the co-main event in the evening, Edson Barboza versus Makwan Amirkhani. We saw Amirkhani back in Fight Island when he submitted that British dude, can't remember his name, put him out cold with that anaconda choke. He took Edson Barboza down 3 times, but Edson Barboza, I think he'll be a problem in this featherweight division. He's a big featherweight. He's strong, and his kick. He looked like he was in his prime with how he was kicking, how quickly he was kicking, and how he was choosing his shots. I'm keen on Edson Barboza in this division. What are your thoughts?
Edson Barboza pisses me off, man. It's just because he's challenged. He's going out and fighting all these guys that I want to see have success, and he's giving them challenges. I get that Dan Ige technically won their last fight. I still think Barboza should have won that. And then he comes out and beats Amir Khani here. Those are two guys that I'm a big fan of in this division. And Barboza has came out and given them challenges. And you love to see guys fight at a high level, but it seems like Edson Barboza is kind of the boogeyman for some of my favorite fighters. But he looked really good out here, as you said. Very, very efficient in what he did. Very powerful in his striking. Those kicks are wicked. They always have been. And even moving down in weight, he's keeping that power and he's keeping that quickness. That's something to keep an eye out on. He's going to be a force in this division.
Yes, he will. And for we'll get to what's next for Barboza in a minute. But for Amir Khani, I wouldn't be surprised if we see him get another ranked opponent, like maybe the 15th. Like, I know Bryce Mitchell's fighting soon, so whoever comes in that position after Bryce Mitchell wins, I think that's whom he'll fight next. I think Amir Khani is a very, very good fighter. I think there's a lot of potential in him. I think there's a lot of revenue in him because he gets that finish market, and he can submit, and he can do it on the feet too a little bit. So what do you think's next for Amir Khani?
Yeah, I think you look at Amir Khani, and he's still a guy to watch out for. He's still a guy that has a chance to be very successful in the UFC, and I think he's still in a position to get somebody ranked. He's in a position to still take a step up in that regard, and I think we're going to see him do it. We're going to see him have success moving forward. Edson Barboza may have been a little bit of a bridge too far for him, but I still think Amir Khani's got a great chance to be very successful.
For sure. And to Edson Barboza, it's kind of a tough situation. I don't know where he fights next because this division's pretty locked up. If you look at the top 6, these guys are all title contenders. These guys can fight at a title at any time because I think Calvin Kattar is that good, along with Yair, Chan Sung Jun, and Zabit. But it's a very interesting division when it comes to these rankings. I mean, Sodiq Yusuff has not fought in a while, so maybe we can see that. But I don't know. I think it's in Barboza's best interest to wait it out a little bit and see how this division pans out over the next 4 or 5 months. What do you think?
Yeah, we've talked about this division before. This featherweight division is going to take some organizing. It's going to take some people fighting a couple more times before we really have a clear-cut look at the hierarchy moving up and down. But Edson Barboza, he may have to wait a little bit more for a fight, but a guy at his point in his career, I think he can afford to wait a little bit, kind of pick his spots, not necessarily take the first fight that comes across his table, and that's not a bad thing. So I think Barboza is in a position where he can wait, let things shake out a little bit more, and then pick his spots from there.
Definitely. And you know what ticks me off? Jan Blachowicz isn't in the pound-for-pound rankings.
That's upsetting.
That is upsetting.
That's quite upsetting.
I mean, he
demolished Dominic Reyes.
He decimated him. But yeah, I mean, Conor McGregor's up there. I mean, he hasn't. I'm not gonna get into that.
That's not a road we need to go down. Cause
I'm gonna sound like you on the 6 a.m. lift talking about Baylor.
Talking about Baylor football. Jeez.
All right, a good matchup. I liked this matchup coming into it, but Corey Sandhagen, man, against Marlon Moraes, he looked good. I think after that Aljamain Sterling fight, he kind of realized, well, got to get my stuff back on track. So he looked good. He outlanded Marlon Moraes significantly coming into the second round, and then he just hit him with that spinning wheel kick. I think, yeah, it was a wheel kick. And then, he put Moraes to the ground, started the ground and pound, and hurt the ref stepped in. It was a very efficient performance by Sandhagen. He chose his shots. He landed 43% of them. Doesn't look like it, but Marlon Moraes is. I think he's one of the best in this division still, even after this performance. What were your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this is just another very exciting fight. Another fight where every strike landed was significant. 52 significant strikes between these two guys, and Corey Sandhagen was just right on top of Marlon Moraes from the beginning, was directly in his face, really bouncing back from that Aljamain Sterling loss, where I think we saw him be a little bit more passive, and that's what led to Sterling locking in that rear naked choke and finishing it off pretty quickly. Sandhagen was able to come out. He was aggressive. He was the Corey Sandhagen we've seen in the past, where he just goes right after guys, and that's what he did to Marlon Moraes here. I agree with you. Marlon Moraes is one of the best bantamweights in the world, and Corey Sandhagen made him look nowhere near that. So I think Sandhagen's put himself in a great position. I think he's put himself in a position to potentially get a title shot very soon, and he did it by knocking off one of the best guys in the world at this weight class.
Yep, I think I'm not even gonna add anything to that. So to the rankings and what's next for these guys. For Moraes, I don't. I think it could be Cody Garbrandt potentially. Hear me out here. I think Cody Garbrandt got hurt from that flyweight title fight. He might not fight for it again. And I think come December, January, the flyweight title is not going to be in contention because it had just been fought for. So I think Cody Garbrandt could be a good next opponent for Marlon Moraes coming back out of this loss. What do you think?
I would absolutely agree. I think Marlon Moraes, like you said, coming off of a loss against a guy that's kind of coming up in the rankings again in Cody Garbrandt, I think that'd be really, really. I think that would be really interesting to watch, a fun fight to see.
Definitely. And for Corey Sandhagen, I think his best move is to wait. I think he should just kind of just stay lurking. Piotr Jan and Aljo, I believe they will fight fairly soon. Um, it just depends on visa stuff with Piotr Jan going training in Thailand, if I'm not mistaken. So I think with visa issues and stuff like that, this fight it might be until February till we see this fight pan out. What do you think?
I think so, and I think Corey Sandhagen has made himself the clear-cut next guy to fight. However, he could be in for a little bit of a layoff anyway. I was just moments ago looking at the medical suspensions as a result of this fight card. He's potentially looking at a 6-month layoff. It's possible that he has a broken orbital bone, which would force him to have a 6-month layoff after getting checked out by an ophthalmologist. He'll have to be cleared, or else it's a 180-day medical suspension. It's a minimum of 30. But Corey Sandhagen could be down for 6 months, which would put him in a position then with Piotr Jan and Aljamain Sterling potentially fighting in the next few months, would put him in a position to get that next title shot. But still, Corey Sandhagen, regardless of who his next match is made up against, is probably going to be down for the next 6 months.
Yeah, I think that could work to his benefit, honestly, because
Yeah.
I don't want him to be like what's her face, Joanne Calderwood, just fighting for no reason, and losing that potential title shot. I think obviously Aljamain Sterling's next. There's no question about that. But I think honestly, Corey Sandhagen just standing, waiting back for who's next will just benefit him in the long run. So I think I'm intrigued to see what's next for Corey Sandhagen. All right, to news. We have lots to talk about in this sector. Conor McGregor wants to fight before 2020 is over against what's his face, Dustin Poirier. He's agreed to the fight. What do you think?
Let's see it. I want to watch these guys fight, and I want to do it in 2020. Bring it on.
Oh heck yes. Scott Van Pelt getting some backlash on what he said about the knockout concerning Joaquin Buckley and Impa Kasanganay. He said, "I get that most people love it. I don't love that. The guy is out." Mashes his head to the ground. Yeah. And we know SVP's a big boxing guy. He got a lot of flack for this. What were your thoughts on his comments?
I mean, it's a different world, and I get the sentiment, but I think and I've discovered this in talking to some people that are more boxing focused when it comes to combat sports. There are some boxing fans out there that don't really get the UFC. They don't really get what I don't know how to put this, but there are some people that are big boxing fans that don't really get the UFC, and they look at it from the boxing perspective of, everything is points. You get knockouts, but for the most part, you're looking at points, you're looking at strategy more often, and you have that in the UFC, but it's not quite as refined as boxing. And I think that's the problem you run into with a lot of boxing purists when they take a look at the UFC, when they take a look at MMA, and they don't necessarily understand what they're seeing.
Yeah, I think that's part of it too. I like Scott Van Pelt. He's a good dude.
As do I.
Yeah, Big Ten guy also. Well, Maryland was in the ACC when he went, but hey, Big Ten guy. I respect Scott Van Pelt, and I don't think he understands what he saw. That
Right.
was skill at its finest. I mean, Impa Song and I should have just threw his leg to the side, but what Joaquin Buckley saw, what he did, that I don't know, it was beautiful. I I think it was beautiful. To the
Yes.
next story I thought was interesting. Habib said he would never coach the Ultimate Fighter against Conor McGregor, even if the UFC offered $5 billion. Now, $5 billion, I would accept that in a heartbeat. I don't care
Oh,
if I hate the
easily.
guy, but I mean, I think Habib has enough money to not care about having $5 billion. What were your thoughts on his comments?
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure this was something that was on the table at some point, but okay, that would have been really entertaining to watch. But is it that big of a story? Probably not. It would have led to another Conor Habib fight, probably. But that's what I would have been interested in getting out of this, another fight between those guys. But okay, Khabib likes to talk about a lot of things,
Yeah.
and this is just another one of them. So people talk about Conor McGregor running his mouth, and Khabib kind of does it a little more quietly, but he just says some things to say them, and I mean, there's
Yeah.
not much you can do with it.
Yeah, there isn't much you can do with it. Okay. Do you have anything you want to talk about?
You covered it, man. I came in here with a couple headlines, and you took them all.
Oof. All right. We got a good card coming up Saturday. I'm
Yes,
excited for
sir.
this one. Big implications in this one. Title shot implications for this one against Ortega and the Korean Zombie. Daniel, I want to thank you for coming on again. It's good to be back at this.
Yes, sir.
All right. We'll see you guys. I don't know when, but we'll figure it out.